Hello. So today is episode 7.3. Like I said, my seventh year was a very significant year. I met a lot of important people in my life. I might have a 7.4, maybe not. So here goes. So, um, so when I was at 7 years old, I used to spend a lot of time uh, at my um, at my grandma, my mama's house, in the in the afternoons, in the summer especially, because during my summer vacation, that's where I would spend my parents being both working. They would drop me off, and I'd spend my all my summer vacation they would drop me off in the morning and pick me up in the evening. So around that time, my youngest uncle, he was dating, and back then they didn't use the word dating or girlfriend. These were all like they didn't use these words. They used to say he used to like somebody. But anyway, he was dating my youngest aunt at that time. And she would often pass by my grandma's house, and they were not uh, they were not yet engaged by then. But my mama knew that my uncle liked her, and I think she knew that my aunt also liked my uncle. So she once commented to me that, oh, that's the girl Kiran likes. Um, so I remember that was the first time I saw my youngest aunt. My youngest aunt had a very, very huge positive impact and influence in my life. And this is when I say my youngest aunt, I don't mean the other youngest aunt. I don't mean my Pinny, my mom's youngest sister. I mean my youngest uncle's wife, my Attaya in Telugu. So, and I saw her, and she used to often pass by my mama's house. And what was very different about her is she used to ride a bike. And this part I don't remember very clearly. I think it was a lady's bike. I think that was the first time I saw a lady's bike, or maybe she rode a men's bike. But she definitely had a bike, and her bike also had a little basket in the front. I mean, not the basket with flowers and all like you see in cartoons, but she definitely had a basket in the front, and it had a little. They used to call it a carrier, but it was like a seat that also had a spring on the back. And people used to use bikes as their mode of transportation. They just didn't ride them for fun. They used to actually go from place to place. So she had this bike, and that's the vision that I have of her. So one of my very special encounters uh, with her, and a very special evening that I spent there was, uh, she used to often stop by and spend some time with my grandma, and I talk very sweetly to her. And during one of those meetings, my mama mentioned to her, she used to actually go to her Bharatnatyam dance class. And it was one of those conversations. My mama mentioned to her that I too was taking Bharatnatyam classes. And then she said, oh, so then maybe she'll be interested in joining me in one of my classes. Maybe I can take her along to show her this. And I thought she was just saying it. I didn't think she was serious. But I always hoped that she was serious, because I was so excited. Like I said, I was very interested in dance. It gave me a platform to be in the limelight. And me being a very shy kid in terms of speaking, Dance was a way that I could express myself. I could dress up well. I was on stage. So I really was pretty passionate about dance, and Bharatnatyam in particular, because it was performing. And but she did actually really mean it, because the very next day, she just stopped by and she said, "Would you like to ride with me to the class?" Then I said, "Yeah, yeah, of course." And I remember that until then, a couple of times I had ridden with my brother, and my brother didn't have that carrier thing at the back, on the back wheel. I used to sit on the bar in the front. But my aunt actually, she had that carrier thing in the back wheel, and she had this aluminum. It was called a tiffin box, like a lunch box or a snack box, and it was in the carrier like this. It was in the spring, and I remember she took out that spring and she took out that aluminum box, and she put it in the basket in the front, and she said, "You can sit down here." And that was the first time I sat in the back of a bicycle, and it was so comfortable compared to sitting in that rod in the front. um, so I sat in the back, and I was very scared that I'll fall off, but she was very adept. She was very comfortable with it, and she used to always wear these trousers and these buttoned up shirts. And I think she used to get those shirts stitched because they were so cute. They used to, like, they were buttoned up shirts, but sometimes they used to have puff sleeves, sometimes like three-fourth sleeves, and sometimes like half sleeves. And she used to wear these pants. And I'd never seen a girl of, she was around 16 when I met her. I'd never seen like an older girl of that age, like dressing in Western wear. So I was very intrigued by that. She had very curly hair and this ponytail, and um, she used to wear this little black bindi always. And she had a certain style of wearing it. She used to wear it a little lower, I think, or higher. And the reason I talk about it, whatever style and whatever color she wore, um, I think my amama didn't like it. Either she used to wear it low and my amama wanted her to wear it high, or she used to wear it high and my mom wanted to wear it low. And she also didn't like the color that she was wearing. And the reason I'm mentioning that is, if I can look back in life, like what I learned from my Ataya, my Radhataya, is, she was always so flexible. I think she is the most flexible person that I have seen in my life. Um, she made a lot of sacrifices in her life. I don't want to go into too many details, but she made a lot of sacrifices for somebody so young. Um to be with my uncle and to adjust with him. She gave up a lot. Some things very close to her heart, like dance and a lot of passions, um, and maybe people very close to her only know this. And the reason most people don't know this is because she never sat and publicized it. She just did it so happily for the man she loved, and she was so flexible. I never saw her challenging much or arguing or anything like that. Maybe behind the scenes she did, but I've never seen her making a big noise about the sacrifices she made. But she was very, very flexible. I mean, to date, like, what I learned from her is like how much flexibility, like, you lose in the short term, but in the long term you win so much. So that's what I learned from her. If there's one thing I can say I learned from her. So anyways, she had that bindi. Like I said, it was a black one that she used to wear between her eyebrows, I think. And I sat in that, and we rode. Her dance class was her dance teacher used to run her dance classes out of a home in Vijayanagar colony. And I hadn't seen other parts of Vijayanagar colony. My world was small. I was only 7 years old then. But like she kind of took me there, and I remember that it went she went straight down, like, south, and then she took a left, and then she took a right, and there was a home. They were all LIGH homes. And back then I remember all those homes in Vijayanagar colony in that section had the same gate. The front gate, it was short, and it had, like, it was gray in color. It was even the same color, and it was so, like, there was this tiny gate, and all those homes were identical. Now if you see, they're all like different homes and bungalows, but back then it was like a very modest neighborhood. There were still bungalows, but tiny bungalows and with nice yards. So anyway, she took me there, and so until then, my dance class, like I told you, it literally had only 4 members. It was Aarti, Gauri, me, and this other girl named Shweta or whatever. When we initially joined, Indu and Komal were with us, but they were Marwadi kids. They were not so interested in Bharatnatyam, and they dropped out after the first year. So it was just the 4 of us. So I'd never been to like a professional school with, batches and levels, and there were so many chappals outside, like, so many chappals as like footwear, because all of them were spread out, like, I would say either like 30, 35 pairs there. So my aunt, back then she was not my aunt, so I didn't even know what to call her, because I kind of knew that they were not engaged, they were only dating, but I kind of knew that my uncle would marry her. I don't know how I knew. Maybe I manifested that, but I wanted my uncle to marry her. She was one of those people that I liked instantly, because she was actually so close to my age. She's only 9 years older than me. So then we took off all our chappals and all that there, and then we went in, and my uh, my youngest aunt, who was like just Radha to me at that time. I didn't ever call her that, because again, like I said, I knew she was going to be my aunt, so I never called her by her name. I didn't call her auntie or didi or anything like that. Like, I kind of wanted to wait for the moment she would marry my uncle. I'd call her Attaya. So she was always Attaya for me. And so we waited, and then there were so many batches, levels, and it's the first time I saw like a professional school, like where there's so many students. And then there was one set of students who went in who were very elementary, and then there was this other set of students who went in who were at the intermediate. They were the kind of the same level that I was at. And so my aunt actually asked, would you like to join them? Like, I can ask my teacher. And I said, no, I felt very shy, so I didn't want to join them. So then my aunt's group went in. They were very advanced, and so there's an item in Bharatnatyam called Varnam. I think, like, my youngest daughter, like, you can relate to it. You learn that when you're in a pretty advanced stage of Bharatnatyam, like just before, like, you're getting ready for your Arangetram. And that's what my aunt was learning. So she was very advanced stage, and she danced with a couple of other young girls of her age. They danced, and then their teacher, who was a lady, and I'd never seen a lady teacher before. Later on, I realized that the lady teacher is actually the default, and I had a guy teacher, and that's actually the exception. There are more women teachers than men teachers in India for me, but I was only used to a male teacher, so I thought all teachers were male, so I thought this was the exception. So she she said, you know, um, then the lady teacher told the senior students, and this happens in my dance school here also. She said to the, why don't you go take the younger kids off to the side and teach them a few steps, because there were many batches. So at that time, my aunt said, like, okay, like, I'll uh, 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 we'll teach them. And so my aunt and one of her friends, they took all the younger batch, like some 4 or 5 kids, and off to a little bit area on the side. I think it was a room on the side, or kind of a corner on the side, where the main class was not happening, to make them practice the steps. And at that time, my aunt asked me again, like, do you want to come join them? Because then I was so excited. That's a very, I don't think my aunt remembers this incident actually, but it was a very special thing for me that my aunt was, like, the senior student, and she was teaching the steps, and I joined the junior students and I did all the steps. They all had their gunguru. I didn't have it, but so my aunt asked me, would you like to borrow mine? I said, no, no, no. Then I did those steps. It was a very special afternoon, and something that we really bonded that time. And then she did drop me back home. The other person that I remember also came into my life is, so around this time, my youngest aunt, and this is not this aunt, is my mom's younger sister, my Pinny. She had started dating, and again, they didn't use the word dating back then. It's not like they dated many people and decided on one. So she actually liked my uncle, my youngest uncle. I mean, this is so confusing in English. I'll just use Telugu terms, because my babai, who's not different than who's different than my mawaya, and they were actually engaged, and they were engaged to be married sometime just before I turned 8. And just like my oldest Ataya, for me, she was the epitome of beauty, because I related her to this porcelain doll that was in my showcase. In my family, everybody used to say that my dad was the most handsome. He had exceptionally good looks. He almost looked European, foreign, or like, he didn't even look Telugu actually. Not that Telugu guys look bad, but it's just like he had very unique looks, very sharp features. But interestingly for me, my dad was my hero. I really looked up to him. He was the person I loved the most, who really gave me a lot of attention, lot of love, lot of care. But my memory of him, I never thought of him as a handsome man, because I hadn't seen the pictures of his when he was young. So my memory of him, he was like bald and he was little middle-aged. According to me, he was actually not middle-aged, but according to me, he was. So he was around 35, by the time I was born. He was around 34. And by the time I had started having these memories, he was nearly 40. So for me, like, I never considered him until many years later. I never considered him a handsome person. And people used to say, my 2 uncles, in fact, all my 3 uncles, people used to say that they were very handsome. But my oldest uncle, I was very intimidated by him. I hardly spoke to him actually. And he was also older around that time, right? Like 36. So I never saw him as like a handsome person, although he was actually, but I never saw him like that. And my other 2 uncles, I have known them since I was a kid. So I never saw them like they were just somebody like I was used to. Um, Although everybody says my two uncles are very handsome, especially my youngest uncle. Everybody used to say he was so handsome, and yeah, and he was very handsome. So for me, the first person that I remember is like the most handsome man in the world is my babai. I guess I found him because he came from a different family. Uh, his features were very different, and he had this like big like bee stung lips, and he had this salt and pepper hair, very thick hair. His hairstyle was different. His hair was very wavy. Apparently, my dad's was too, but when I knew my dad, he was bald, so I never saw the wavy hair. So his hair was wavy, and it was like salt and peppered. Like I'd never seen that kind of hair anywhere. Um, and in the beginning, he didn't have this, but eventually he grew a beard. So it was very different kind of looks. And every time I saw him, maybe it was like my first like childhood crush or whatever. Every time I saw him, I would always think that I'd want to marry a person who looks like him. I'd always think like that. So I used to find him very handsome. He had these large eyes. My cousin Vikas, his son, he's a mix of my aunt and uncle. Everybody says he looks like my aunt, but his lips actually are like his dad's, very much so. So he got introduced into our lives, and he was so. People say that his dad was actually very well off and very wealthy. I found that out much later, and I'll tell you how I found out about this in my episode 8. But, they have this myth that in Hindi they say Bade Baap ka beta and Bigda hua aulad type of thing. But he was the complete opposite of that. Like, he could have easily handed everything could have been handed over to him in a platter if he wanted, but he was completely self-made. He really you could see that in his actions that he really wanted to do everything on his own. He wanted to make his own identity. So he used to travel he used to come in a bus, and the way he used to dress, and he had this cloth like khadi type hand bag for his books. He would always have a book. He'd always be reading a book. That's how I remember. Like when he came to visit my aunt, sometimes she would come from inside, uh, and he was waiting. He would be reading a book. Sometimes he would come in an auto to visit her, and he would just carefully count, he would be you could see he was keeping an account of how much money the auto costs, and he was very particular. I could tell that he never took advantage of his, even as a child, I could tell that he never took advantage of his, parents' position in life or wealth. He was he had that vibe of, I don't think he was a Marxist or a communist, but he had that vibe. I don't know how to explain it. He had that vibe that he wanted to make it on his own. It was so obvious, even to me as a child. So this Vijayanagar colony home had like a tree. I think it was a mango tree, guava tree. It used to come into the home. It was very low. The branches were very, very low, like just 4 feet high or something. And there was a little step kind of thing there with access. They were actually access to the plumbing system. In India, they used to have these manholes with big iron grates on top for access. So those two plumbing and lines access was there. There were two big grates there, and there was like little step there. And my aunt and uncle used to always sit there and talk every day. And there was no that's all they did. They were so innocent. But he would always visit her regularly in the evening. And all they sat was they just talked, and I don't think they even ever held hands or anything like that, at least not in front of me. So, but he used to give her a lot of time and they used to talk. And my aunt was a big talker and she used to talk a lot. And he used to just like listen to him like, like this. She used to talk, talk, talk. I think she used to tell him about his day or whatever, and she used to talk. And my favorite part was I was so fascinated by my uncle's hair and mostly his hair and also his looks. I was like completely fascinated. I thought he was the most handsome guy in the world for me because his features were so different than, like I said, what I've seen in my and even his personality was so different. So I remember often my favorite part was I would go and I would like hug him from the back, and he would do this thing that only he did. Like none of my other uncles had this thing. It was our thing, like then he would hold my hands like this, and then he would swing me like this. He would like go like that, and I would just hug him like this, and it was like he would swing me like this back and forth. And I used to, I really enjoy that time. And sometimes I would sit between them. And the nice part was my aunt, and this uncle, my babai, they never shooed me away. Like I didn't even realize that, I was probably interrupting their lone time or anything like that. Many times they would make me sit between them, and I would just be, and he would ask me a lot about my school. And I think this was the first time that I actually learned to talk to an adult because, like I said, like not many adults like gave me much attention. It was so quiet. I was more of an observer, but he used to talk to me a lot about school, my favorite subject. And I know this is what all adults talk to little kids. But for me, who was such a shy kid, it was so special. Like, he would ask me, what's my favorite subject? And until then, I never even thought about these things. Okay, I was like, what's my favorite subject? So I said social. Then he said, it's not social, it's social studies. But he said it in such a nice way, and he had a very good sense of humor. So, um, so it is strange that this year I actually met three of my most favorite people, and they were actually, of course, I really love my aunts and uncles related to me by blood, but it's interesting and quite interesting to me that my favorite people are the aunts and uncles that they married. So I met my Anuradhataya, who my Prasad Moya married, and I'm still like so much in awe of her. And then I met my Radhataya, who had such a positive influence in my life in so many critical junctures of my life. And then I met my Babai, my Narasimha Babai, who really who I really liked. For some strange reason, I instantly liked him. So, so that's all I have for age 7. I don't think there's going to be a 7.4. Hopefully, I wrapped this up. There's some more incidents in age 7, but I'm going to wrap up age 7. And my next part will be episode 8. And I'm sure that'll have many parts because my age 8 is one of my very favorite ages. I love this. There are so many wonderful and amazing things that happened to me, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. Bye.